Human gets alien queen's clone pregnant, now the real queen wants a turn. Commander Jason Wood stood at rigid attention in the gleaming reception hall of the Crimson Palace headquarters of the Tan Dominion on Earth. The mirrored walls reflected his muscular frame, bare torso glistening with a light sheen of sweat from the mandatory physical assessment he just completed. Black trousers hugging his hips, secured by a polished black belt. He ran a hand through his slick back light blonde hair. Feeling the light stubble on his jaw, Commander Wood, the Tan official, addressed him. Her bright red skin contrasting with her ornate silver uniform. Your military record is exceptional. 3 tours in the Orion conflict, decorated twice for valor, and your psychological profile indicates unwavering loyalty. Jason maintained his stoic expression. I serve where I'm needed, ma'am. Indeed, and now you're needed in a rather unique capacity. She slid a data tablet across the obsidian table. You've been selected as personal bodyguard to Queen Nisara of the Tan Dominion during her extended diplomatic mission on Earth. Jason's eyebrows rose slightly. The Tan Queen, ruler of a star empire spanning 17 systems, coming to Earth. The implications were enormous. I'm honored, but the position is non-negotiable, Commander. The official cut him off. The Human-Tan alliance is still fragile. Having a human protector sends a powerful message of trust. Jason scanned the tablet. The assignment details were sparse, but the compensation was astronomical. After his dishonorable discharge from Earth Defense Force, a political move after he'd exposed corruption in the upper ranks, this opportunity seemed too good to be true. When do I begin? Immediately. The Queen's transport arrives tomorrow. You'll be briefed on protocol tonight. The official stood. One more thing, Commander, you won't always be guarding Queen Nisara herself. Jason frowned. I don't understand. The Queen employs a biosynthetic duplicate for less critical functions, a clone if you will, though we prefer the term royal proxy. Physically identical in every way, but without the burden of royal authority. You'll often be assigned to the proxy for routine matters. A body, D. Jason said flatly, far more sophisticated than that. The proxy possesses the Queen's memories and mannerisms, but has her own distinct consciousness. She handles the Queen's more tedious obligations. Jason nodded slowly. Understood. Excellent. Your quarters are prepared. I suggest you rest. Tomorrow will be demanding. The following morning, Jason stood on the landing pad atop the Crimson Palace, dressed in his new formal uniform, a tailored black suit with subtle crimson accents that marked him as royal security. The sleek Toyan vessel descended through the clouds, its silver hull catching the morning sunlight when the boarding ramp extended. Jason straightened his posture. First came a contingent of Tan guards, their red skin and silver armor creating a living cutter. Then she appeared. Queen Nisha stood tall and wriggled, her bright red skin luminous against her elaborate silver and black bodysuit adorned with gold emblems of office. Her long silvery hair cascaded down her back, and her striking blue eyes surveyed the reception party with cool assessment. Even from a distance, Jason could feel the weight of authority she carried. The Queen barely acknowledged the assembled dignitaries before disappearing into the palace with her entourage, leaving Jason standing awkwardly on the platform. Commander Wood, he turned to find another Tan woman approaching. For a moment he thought the Queen had returned, but subtle differences became apparent. Though physically identical, the same bright red skin, silvery hair and blue eyes, this woman wore a simpler version of the royal attire. Her expression was warmer, more approachable. I'm La, she said, extending a slender hand in the human custom of greeting the Queen's proxy. I understand you'll be my primary security detail. Jason took her hand, noting the strength in her grip. Commander Jason Wood, at your service. Lara smiled, revealing perfect white teeth against her crimson skin. The Queen is resting after the journey. She has a private meeting with your world leaders tomorrow. Today, however, I'm scheduled to tour your city's cultural district as a goodwill gesture. I hope you don't mind starting work immediately. There was something in her tone, a hint of resignation perhaps, that caught Jason's attention. This wasn't just a clone following orders. This was a person with her own thoughts and feelings. Not at all, he replied, offering his arm in a formal escort position. It would be my pleasure to show you Earth's finest cultural achievements. Lara's eyes widened slightly at the gesture before she placed her hand on his arm. How gallant, the briefing said. Humans were an interesting species, but they didn't mention charming. As they walked toward the waiting transport, Jason felt the eyes of the Tan officials on them. He'd been briefed on maintaining professional distance, but something about Lear's almost imperceptible sigh of relief at being treated as a person rather than an object made him want to show her more than just Earth's museums. Just doing my job, he said with a small smile, though I suspect guarding you will be far more pleasant than my previous assignments. Lara laughed, a melodic sound that seemed to surprise even her. Commander, I think this arrangement might work out after all. The national Gallery's grand atrium soared above them, sunlight streaming through glass panels. To illuminate centuries of humanity's artistic achievements, Jason watched Lavara as she moved from exhibit to exhibit, her reactions far more captivating than the masterpieces surrounding them. This one Lavaro paused before a large canvas depicting revolutionaries breaking their chains. There's something about it that resonates deeply. Jason stepped closer, maintaining a professional distance while still speaking privately. It's called Liberation, painted after the Third World Unity Movement. Elle's blue eyes studied the painting intently, the expression so raw, so genuine, the triumph mixed with uncertainty. She turned to Jason. Is that how freedom feels? Exhilarating yet terrifying. The question caught him off guard. I suppose it is. Freedom means making your own choices but also facing the consequences. Choices, she repeated softly, almost wistfully. What a luxury. Jason glanced around, ensuring they weren't overheard. The gallery had been cleared for their visit, with only distant security personnel at the entrances. If you don't mind me asking, how much choice do you have in your position? Elle's posture shifted subtly, her shoulders squaring as if bracing herself. I exist to serve the Queen. My purpose is defined by her needs. That's your function, Jason noted. Not who you are. A flicker of surprise crossed her crimson features. Commander, would Jason please? When it's just us. Her lips curved into a small smile. Jason, then you're rather perceptive for a human bodyguard. And you're rather philosophical for a royal stand-in. Lee laughed, the sound echoing through the empty gallery. Touché. She moved to the next exhibit, a sculpture of intertwined figures. The Tan Dominion values efficiency. The Queen can't be everywhere, so I fulfill obligations deemed necessary but not worthy of her personal attention, like appreciating alien art. Precisely. Lavar ran her fingers just above the sculpture's surface, not quite touching, though I find I rather enjoy these tedious assignments. Jason watched her graceful movements, struck by the contradiction she embodied, physically identical to the imperious Queen he'd glimpsed earlier, yet entirely different in spirit. You appreciate beauty, I do. Her gaze met his, lingering a moment longer than protocol suggested in all its forms. Heat crept up Jason's neck. Was she flirting with him? The thought was simultaneously thrilling and alarming. The human form has inspired artists for millennia, he said, gesturing to a nearby classical sculpture. Indeed, your species has a fascinating physiology. Elle's eyes traveled over him with scientific interest that didn't quite mask something more personal. Strong yet vulnerable, resilient yet soft. We manage, Jason replied, suddenly very aware of his body. Tans are quite remarkable. Yourselves, are we? Elle stepped closer, her voice dropping. Or is it just our novelty that intrigues you? The question hung between them, charged with unspoken implications. Jason found himself drawn to her, not as the Queen's copy but as the woman before him, with curiosity burning in her eyes. I find intelligence and authenticity intriguing, he answered honestly. Novelty fades character. Doesn't. Something vulnerable flashed across Aliva's face, even when that character was engineered rather than born. Especially then. Jason risked a step closer. It means you've defined yourself despite your circumstances, not because of them. Lava's breath caught audibly for a moment. The royal proxy van leaving, just a woman struggling with unexpected emotions. No one has ever seen me that way before. The air between them seemed to vibrate with possibility. Jason was acutely conscious of crossing a line but couldn't bring himself to step back. Then they weren't really looking. Lear's hand rose, hesitating just short of touching his chest. This is unwise, probably, Jason agreed, making no move to increase the distance between them. I'm not her, Lavara whispered, a confession and a warning. I know exactly who you are, Jason replied, his voice low and certain. The museum's ambient lighting shifted, bathing them in a golden glow as the afternoon sun hit the western windows. It illuminated the silver threads in Lavar's bodysuit, the blue depths of her eyes, the vulnerable curve of her lips. Jason knew protocol demanded he maintained professional distance. His training screamed at him to step back, to remember his duty, but something more fundamental, more human, kept him rooted to the spot, drawn to the connection forming between them. Lara finally broke the moment, turning back to the artwork with visible effort. Tell me about this one, she requested, her voice not quite steady. Jason cleared his throat, following her lead. It's called Awakening. The artist spent 10 years creating it after experiencing a profound personal transformation. Awakening, Lou repeated, studying the sculpture with renewed intensity. How appropriate. As they continued through the gallery, something had fundamentally shifted between them. Their conversation flowed more freely, touching on art, philosophy, and the nature of consciousness. Each exchange revealed more of Leah's rich inner life, her thoughts, her quiet rebellions, her secret appreciation for experiences the Queen deemed beneath her notice. By the time they returned to the Crimson Palace, the Professional boundaries between bodyguard and charge had blurred into something neither could define but both could feel something dangerous, exhilarating, and utterly inevitable. A month passed in a whirlwind of diplomatic functions and cultural exchanges. Spring blossomed across the embassy grounds, mirroring the growing connection between Jason and Lavara. Each day brought them together on various missions, museum openings, technology exhibitions, humanitarian projects, all deemed important enough to warrant security but not significant enough for the Queen herself. Tonight they strolled through the embassy's botanical garden, a magnificent fusion of earth and thorium flora. The diplomatic reception had ended hours ago, but neither had suggested returning to their quarters. These night-blooming jasmine are remarkable, Lavar said, trailing her crimson fingers over the white petals. They release their fragrance only in darkness. Jason watched her in the moonlight, her silver hair seeming some things are meant to be experienced away from scrutiny. Their eyes met, acknowledging the unspoken truth that had grown between them over countless shared moments. The brush of hands during security checks, lingering glances across crowded rooms, late night conversations that stretched until dawn. The tan moonflower is similarly guided him deeper into the garden where phosphorescent blue blooms glowed softly. On my home world they cover entire valleys. The light is strong enough to read by. I'd like to see that someday, Jason said. Would you? Lavar turned to him, suddenly serious. Visit my world if given the opportunity. She smiled sadly. I've never actually seen it myself. My memories of Toria are the Queen's memories implanted during my creation. I've never left Earth since my activation. Jason frowned. That seems unfair. My purpose doesn't require for first-hand experience. She shrugged, but couldn't hide the longing in her voice. Your purpose? Jason echoed, stepping closer. We've spent a month together and I still don't understand how your people justify creating a sentient being solely to serve another. Lee's expression grew contemplative. Adarin view it differently. I'm not considered separate from the Queen but an extension of her consciousness. In their view I'm not serving, I'm simply another aspect of her existence. But you are separate, Jason insisted. You have your own thoughts, feelings, desires. Lavar whispered the word, hanging between them like the garden's heavy perfume. Those weren't supposed to be part of my programming. They had reached a secluded alcove where a stone bench sat beneath an arbor of intertwined earth roses and 10 vine stars. The embassy's lights were distant pinpricks through the foliage. Yet here you are, Jason said softly. Here I am, she agreed, her blue eyes luminous in the darkness. Feeling things I was never designed to feel. The tension that had built between them over weeks of restraint finally reached its breaking point. Jason reached for her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Tell me to stop, he murmured. I can't, she admitted. I don't want to. Their lips met in a kiss that began tentatively but quickly blazed into something urgent and consuming. Lara's skin was warmer than a human's, radiating heat that seemed to flow into Jason's very core. Her fingers tangled in his hair as his arms encircled her waist, pulling her against him. This is madness, she breathed against his mouth. The best kind, he replied, trailing kisses along her jawline. They sank onto the stone bench, exploring each other with an intensity born of weeks of restraint. The garden's shadows cloaked them as boundaries dissolved, professional distance abandoned for something far more profound. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the glowing 10 flowers, Lavara traced patterns on Jason's chest. 10 physiology is compatible with humans, she said softly, but there are differences you should know about. Jason smiled, kissing her forehead. I noticed, she laughed, the sound pure joy. Not all of them are reproductive biology. For instance, 10 females can conceive much more readily than human women. A single encounter is often sufficient. Oh. Jason propped himself up on one elbow, suddenly serious. Should we be concerned? Lark's expression was unreadable in the dim light. Would it trouble you if there were consequences? Jason considered the question carefully. Not in the way you might think. I'd be concerned about what it would mean for you, for your position. My position is already precarious by Torian standards, she said. I exist at the Queen's pleasure. But she hesitated. There are no records of a human Tauran conception. It might not even be possible. Jason brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. And if it is, then we face that reality together, she said with surprising firmness. I may be the Queen's proxy, but in this, in us, I make my own choice. The conviction in her voice stirred something protective in Jason's chest. He pulled her closer, overwhelmed by the sign significance of what had transpired between them. What had begun his attraction had evolved into something he hadn't dared name yet, but recognized with absolute certainty. We should return, Lavar said eventually, though she made no move to leave his embrace. The night security rotation will begin soon. 5 more minutes, Jason murmured against her hair, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. Nether noticed The small surveillance drone hovering silently among the luminous flowers is at lens capturing every intimate moment. Before retreating toward the royal chambers, 2 weeks passed in a delicate dance of public professionalism and stolen private moments. Jason and Leah maintained their official roles during daylight hours, but nights belonged to them alone. Whispered conversations in her quarters, gentle explorations of their differences and surprising similarities. This morning, however, something had changed. Lavara had cancelled their scheduled appearance at a technology summit, citing proxy maintenance, a standard excuse that rarely raised eyebrows among the TAN staff when Jason finally received her message to meet in the embassy's medical wing. Concern nodded his stomach. He found her in a private examination room, standing before a holographic display of swirling cellular structures. His voice betrayed his worry. She turned, her crimson features unreadable. Close the door, please. Jason complied, then moved to her side. What's happening? Are you ill? Not ill. La touched the display, freezing the image of intertwined DNA strands, one glowing blue, one red, just creating life. The words hung in the air between them. Jason stared at the display, comprehension dawning slowly. You're pregnant, he said, his voice barely audible. Lavara nodded, her blue eyes searching his face. The medical system confirmed it this morning. Human and Tauran genetic material successfully combined, the first of its kind. Jason's mind raced through implications, consequences, possibilities. How do you feel about this? A smile broke across her features, transforming her expression, terrified, elated, free. She placed a hand on her abdomen, still flat beneath her silver black bodysuit. This child wasn't planned by the Queen or designed by geneticists. It's ours, Jason, something we created together. The wonder in her voice pierced through Jason's initial shock. He covered her hand with his own, a protective gesture that felt as natural as breathing. Our child, he repeated, testing the weight of the words. I never thought, nor did I. Lavara interrupted. Proxies aren't supposed to reproduce, we're engineered to be sterile. Jason frowned. Then how? Human compatibility wasn't accounted for in my design. LV's laugh held of triumph. Your species continues to surprise the Dominion. Your genetic structure somehow bypassed the safeguards in mind. Pride swelled in Jason's chest, a primal human response to the news that his seed had overcome alien barriers. Humanity finds a way, he murmured. Indeed. L's expression sobered. But we face significant challenges. This pregnancy will be impossible to hide from the Queen for long. All my biometric data feeds directly to the royal medical systems. The reality of their situation crashed down on Jason. How much time do we have? Days, perhaps a week at most. Lavara straightened her shoulders. I've already begun formulating a plan. Of course she had, despite her status as a copy. Lava's strategic thinking often surpassed even the Queen. It was one of countless ways she'd proven herself more than just a royal extension. I'm listening, Jason said. We have 3 options. Lavara deactivated the holographic display. First, we could attempt to flee Earth before the Queen discovers our situation. The Dominion's reach is vast, but there are independent colonies in the outer rim where we might disappear. Jason nodded grimly. Running would mean leaving everything behind. Second, we could appeal directly to human authorities for asylum. Your government might view our child as a diplomatic opportunity, living proof of human tone compatibility, making our child a political pawn. Jason observed. Not ideal. Third, Law continued, we face the Queen directly. I explain the situation and accept whatever consequences follow. That's not happening, Jason said firmly. I won't let you face punishment for something we both chose. Liver's expression softened. My brave human. She cued his cheek. There's a 4th option I haven't mentioned. It's unconventional. I'm listening. In Tauran culture, proxies are considered extensions of the royal self. Technically, any child I bear could be considered the Queen's offspring as well. Jason blinked, processing the implications. You're suggesting we tell the Queen the child is hers? In a manner of speaking, leave her apace the small room. If presented correctly, this pregnancy could be framed as a diplomatic breakthrough, the first successful human-tone hybrid, a symbol of our species' compatibility. The Queen might claim the achievement rather than punish it. That's politically brilliant, Jason admitted, but would she accept it? L's smile turned enigmatic. The Queen has shown unusual interest in human physiology since our arrival, and she's been monitoring our interactions more closely than you realize. She knows about us. Jason tensed. Not explicitly, but she's curious. Lara's gaze turned thoughtful. 10 Royalty don't experience physical intimacy as humans do. It's considered beneath their station, a distraction from governance. That's partly why proxies exist, to experience sensations the Queen herself avoids. So I've been providing data for her all this time. Jason wasn't sure whether to feel violated or amused. Not exactly. The connection isn't direct. I don't transmit experiences, but she receives medical readings, hormone levels. L's cheeks darkened to a deeper crimson, a Tarian blush She knows I've been stimulated in your presence despite the seriousness of their situation. Jason couldn't suppress a grin, and that interests her more than it should by royal standards leave her a step closer, her voice dropping, which might work to our advantage. Before Jason could respond, the medical room's communication panel chimed L-tense, then moved to answer it. The imperious face of Queen Nara herself appeared on the screen, her expression unreadable. Proxy Lavara, your biometric readings show significant anomalies. Report to my private chambers immediately. Her gaze shifted to Jason, lingering with unsettling intensity. Bring your human guard as well. The connection terminated before either could respond. Elle turned to Jason, her earlier confidence wavering. It seems our timeline has accelerated. Jason squared his shoulders, instinctively moving to Elle's side. Then we fa this together. No running, no hiding. She nodded, drawing strength from his resolve. Together as they left the medical wing, Jason placed a protective hand at the small of Lava's back, a gesture that would have seemed merely professional to observers but held a world of meaning between them. Whatever awaited in the Queen's chambers, they would confront it as one. The Queen's private chambers occupied the entire top floor of the Crimson Palace's central spire. Jason had never been permitted entry before. Few humans had. As the elevator ascended silently, he maintained a protective stance beside Lavara, whose composed exterior belied the rapid pulse he could feel when their hands briefly touched. Whatever happens when we murmured, we face it together. Lavara nodded almost imperceptibly as the doors slid open to reveal an antechamber bathed in amber light. Two Tauren royal guards blanked an ornate doorway, their expressions impassive. The Queen awaits, one announced, stepping aside. The inner chamber was a study in opulent soaring ceilings adorned with constellations that shifted and glimmered like real stars, walls lined with rare artifacts from a dozen worlds, and in at its center a raised disk where Queen Nasara reclined on a hovering SHC of polished obsidian. Unlike Leah's practical bodysuit, the Queen wore an elaborate version that incorporated flowing panels of translucent material and intricate gold embroidery that emphasized her status. Her silver hair was arranged in an elaborate crown-like structure studded with glittering gems that caught the light with every slight movement. Approach, she commanded, her voice carrying the same melodic quality as Lara's but edged with authority that broke no defiance. Jason and Lavar advanced to the base of the D, stopping at the customary distance. Jason bowed while Lavara performed the more elaborate 10 gesture of deference, right hand over her heart, left extended palm up toward her sovereign. Your Majesty, they said in unison. Queen Nasara studied them with unnerving intensity, her blue eyes identical to Lavara moving from one to the other. Finally she rose from her shiast with fluid grace and descended the 3 steps to stand directly before them. Fascinating, she said, circling them slowly. The biome data was compelling, but seeing you together, there's an energy between you that transcends mere physical proximity. Jason maintained his formal posture, though every instinct screamed to shield Lavar from the Queen's scrutiny. Your Majesty, I can explain, Lavar began. Can you? The Queen's tone was curious rather than accusatory. Can you explain how a human male in a Tauren proxy engineered to be sterile have created life together? The question confirmed their suspicions. She knew everything. It appears human genetic material bypassed the sterilization protocols. Elle answered carefully. Indeed. Queen Nasara stopped directly in front of Jason, studying him with scientific interest. Commander, would you've accomplished something our most advanced geneticists believed impossible. Your species continues to defy our understanding. Jason met her gaze steadily. Human determination often achieves the supposedly impossible. Your Majesty. A smile curved the Queen's crimson lips. So I'm learning. She returned to her sh, gesturing for them to remain standing. I've been monitoring your interactions since that first day in the art gallery. Your growing connection has provided fascinating data. Jason couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Is that all this is to you? La tensed beside him, but the Queen merely laughed, a sound so similar to Elle's, yet fundamentally different, lacking the warmth that had become so familiar to Jason. Your directness is refreshingly human, Commander. Queen Nara leaned forward, her expression suddenly intense. Let me be equally direct. I am not angry about your relationship with my proxy, nor about the child she now carries. Relief washed through Jason, though caution kept him from relaxing fully. I am, however, the Queen continued intensely curious. She rose again, descending to circle them once more. Tauren royalty are denied certain experiences. Our position requires sacrifice of personal pleasures for the greater good of governance. That is why proxies exist, to experience what we cannot. I understand, Your Majesty. Jason said carefully. Do you? The Queen stopped before him, close enough that he could detect the subtle differences between her scent and Lava's. Something sharper, more refined. La has experienced human intimacy. She has felt your touch, your passion. She carries the evidence of your compatibility within her. Jason swallowed hard, suddenly understanding where this conversation was heading, and now Queen Nar continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. I find myself experiencing something I was not engineered to feel, something primitive and inappropriate for one of my station. Jealousy, La said softly. The Queen's gaze snapped to her proxy. Yes, the admission seemed to cost her something. I, who have never known physical desire, now find myself consumed by it. Because of him. Her eyes were turned to Jason. Because of you. The air in the chamber seemed to thicken. Jason glanced at Lavara, whose expression reflected surprise but not shock, as if she'd suspected this outcome since you allowed yourself to grow so close to my copy. Queen Nasara declared, drawing herself to her full height. I, as the true queen, demand no less attention. The bold statement hung in the air between them. Jason's mind raced through diplomatic protocols and potential responses, finding none adequate for this unprecedented situation. Your Majesty, huh? He finally said, choosing his words with extreme care. I'm honored by your interest, but my feelings for Lavara are not merely physical. We've developed a connection that transcends duty or biology. I'm aware, Miriam, the Queen replied, surprising him. That is precisely what intrigues me. Turin royalty, mate. For political advantage, not emotional fulfillment. The concept of choosing a partner based on personal preferences. She searched for the word revolutionary. She turned to La. You were created from my genetic material, designed to experience what I cannot yet. You've exceeded your programming by forming an emotional bond and creating new life. You've evolved beyond your purpose. Leah stood straighter. Yes, Your Majesty, and you, Commander. The Queen continued, returning her attention to Jason. Have demonstrated that humans possess qualities worthy of further exploration. Jason maintained his composure despite the increasingly suggestive tone. Your Majesty, what exactly are you proposing? Queen Nasara smiled, a predatory expression that reminded Jason that for all her sophistication, she came from a species of apex hunters, a cultural exchange, Commander, one that benefits all parties involved. She gestured expansively. Leah's child will be recognized as a royal offspring, the first human-10 hybrid, a living symbol of our species' compatibility in the future of our alliance. And in exchange? Jason asked. Though he already suspected the answer, the Queen's smile deepened. In exchange, you will introduce me to the human experience of physical intimacy, not as a proxy but as myself, and Asara, Queen of the Tan Dominion. Jason felt Lava's hand brush against his, a subtle gesture of support rather than jealousy. They had discussed this possibility, however unlikely it had seemed at the time. And if I decline? Jason asked, needing to understand the full stakes. Then you both remain welcome in my court, the Queen said smoothly. The child will still be recognized. I am not a tyrant, Commander. I merely offer an opportunity for mutual enlightenment. The proposal hung between them, outrageous by human standards yet perfectly logical within the framework of Tan royal culture. Jason looked to La, whose slight nod conveyed volumes of unspoken understanding. I'll need time to consider Your Majesty's proposal, Jason said finally. Of course. Queen Nara returned to her SHC. You have until tomorrow's sunset. You are dismissed. As they backed away from the royal presence, Jason's mind whirled with implications. The Queen's unexpected reaction had opened possibilities he'd never imagined, and complications he couldn't begin to fathom. The secure communication booth in the embassy's lower level hadn't been used in months. Jason verified his identity with a retinal scan, then input a series of codes he'd memorized years ago but never expected to use again. The screen flickered before resolving into the weathered face of General Marcus Harrington, Jason's former commander and mentor in the Earth Defense Force. Despite his disgrace, Jason had maintained this one connection to his past, a secure channel that bypassed official protocols. With the general's bushy eyebrows rose in surprise. Ben A. While son, Sir. Jason nodded respectfully. I need your counsel on a matter of unusual diplomatic sensitivity. Harrington's expression grew serious. This line is secure. Speak freely. Jason took a deep breath. I've become intimately involved with the Turan Queen's proxy, who is now carrying my child, the first human-10 hybrid. The Queen knows, and rather than punishing us, she's proposed a similar arrangement with herself. A moment of stunned silence followed before Harrington burst into hearty laughter. Only you could turn the security detail into an interstellar soap opera. It's not funny, Sir. Jason protested. Though he couldn't help a small smile. The general's irreverence had always been refreshing amid military rigidity. Oh, but it is. Harrington wiped his eyes. You've accomplished more for human-Tauran relations with your reproductive organs than our diplomats have in a decade of negotiations. Jason ran a hand through his hair. The situation is complicated, I imagine so. Harrington Sobered, what's your primary concern? La, the proxy and I have developed genuine feelings for each other. The Queen's proposal feels like a transaction. Harrington stroked his gray